All right, welcome back, everybody, to the show. It's John Pollock with you here on The Law. Survivor Series weekend is fast approaching, and a man that will be a big part of that weekend joins us on the line right now, no stranger to this program. He is Chris Jericho, who's bringing his live Talk is Jericho show to the John Bassett Theater Sunday morning, November the 20th, and really is the talk of the wrestling world at this time. Chris Jericho with us on the show. Chris, how are you doing today?
Well, I have to always bring this up. Wasn't I your first interview way back when you were like 18 years old or 12 years old or something like that?
That's an incredible memory. It was March of 2004, right before WrestleMania 20, and I was sent to go interview the illustrious Chris Jericho, and what a carrying job one Chris Jericho did with a very young John Pollock.
I remember I thought to myself, this kid has got no future in this business whatsoever. And so I guess I was wrong, because here we are 12 years later, and you're still hanging on by a thread, so congratulations, Pollock.
Even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then, Chris.
Every once in a while. That's absolutely right. Yeah, but congratulations. You guys have built a whole empire, and you even now own TNA, so what more can you ask for?
Well, not a direct involvement with TNA, no less, Chris. I mean, we're going to get into all of your stuff, but as an outsider watching this with TNA, is this something you see as salvageable at this point with TNA?
Well, my heart, as a wrestler and as a fan, says yes, because the worst thing that can happen, and I think even fans that do nothing but bitch about TNA would admit the worst thing that can happen is for TNA to go out of business. I think for the boys and for the whole industry, it would not be good. And the thing is, I was kind of looking forward to maybe a Billy Corgan taking over and kind of giving it a fresh coat of paint and trying things a different way.
Right.
Because I think that's what they have to do. And I was disappointed. I know Billy. I know Billy's passion. I know how Billy is. He's kind of like the reverse me. He's the only other guy that I know that legitimately is, he made it huge in one industry and has really made a lot of inroads in a completely different industry because he has a passion for both, for music and wrestling. So I wanted to see him take over, and sometimes you got to gut everything. Look what the UFC just did. The company bought it for $4 billion and then just basically got rid of everybody that was in the system, and that's how big business works. So I would have liked to have seen everybody kind of get cleared out and start anew with the roster they have. It's not going to happen. So is it just more of the same? I don't know. But like I said, to me, the worst thing that can happen would be for them to go out of business. It's just bad for everybody.
And I also think, Chris, at this time, I mean, you mentioned kind of the goodwill to me of TNA. I think that Matt Hardy has so much reversed that public opinion of TNA. I mean, that is must-see stuff, sure. And he's reinvented himself completely.
No, and you know me, man, I'm all about reinvention, and I'm really proud of Matt for doing that, because I think a couple of years ago you would have probably thought, oh, Matt's a little bit washed up, he's done, and here he is, the hottest guy in the show, and it's not getting old. I mean, the trick or treat thing they did the other day, treat or delete, was awesome. Like he's really, what happens when you get into, when you reinvent yourself and change your character is, it's a little bit of uncharted territory, but once you start figuring out what makes that character tick and start figuring out what people are responding to and really fall into it, you could do no wrong. And that's something that I've kind of been doing over the last 5-6 months with this character that I'm playing now in WWE, and Matt's doing it the same in TNA. He can do anything he wants, and he can get it over because people know what he's up to. And if I told, I don't know, Mike Bennett to make green beans the centerpiece of a promo, it might not work. With Matt Hardy, he's thinking of stuff like that. People say, oh, Jericho got a potted plant over, a key, a clipboard, a scarf, and that's kind of like, give me anything you want and I'll get it over because I know what this character is at this point. And that's a very rare thing, to really have no boundaries in what you're doing as a performer. And when you can kind of fix into that gold, so to speak, people take notice, and that's kind of made TNA a cool thing. I mean, I know we were in the sumo arena this past July having a WWE show, and I had Wi-Fi, and we were all gathered around my computer to watch Final Deletion.
Yeah.
And I'm talking the entire dressing room, the sumo arena, John Cena, AJ Styles, everyone was trying to crowd around and watch it. and I wouldn't let anybody watch it if they didn't see it from the start. So we had 3 or 4 viewings of the damn thing, and that's before our own show for a sold-out crowd in Japan. When was the last time you heard anything involving TNA getting that kind of a buzz? So they definitely have. Once again, I think the worst thing that could happen would be for everything to shut down. Just find a place to work. So I'm pulling for TNA. I have been from the start, and hopefully they're able to change things around and make it something viable once again.
You mentioned all of those various objects that you had the ability to get over. Is that something, Chris, that you knew instantly you had something magic? In specific, the list, which has just taken on a life of its own, because sometimes you can see some great ideas that you just don't realize what you could grow it into. And it seems you've always been able to have that foresight of knowing when you are onto something and making it grow. And you look at where the list has gone just in the last 6 weeks, it is the highlight of television now for people.
Well, I'm not physical, and it's fantastic to say that, oh, yes, I knew all of these things work, because the answer for that is no. I think when I turned heel, and this, it seems like such a long time ago, and it might almost seem that I'm not telling the truth, but go back and watch when I turned on AJ Styles, and I talked about giving him the gift of Jericho, drink it in, man. That got huge boos. Mm-hmm. Big boos, right? The scarf, when I started wearing a scarf before I turned heel, people were hating it. Oh, that's so stupid. What is he doing? He looks ridiculous. The stupid idiot. When I said stupid idiot, that used to get major heat. But what happens is that those things become so entertaining that people start embracing it to where now stupid idiot is a term of endearment. The gift of Jericho, drink it in, man, gets a huge response. So what happened was that was the gift of Jericho. And then actually, I wish I could take credit for saying I came up with it, but Jimmy Jacobs, who has become a writer in the WWE, his name is Chris Scoville, but his wrestling name is Jimmy Jacobs, no stranger to anybody who's a fan of Ring of Honor or any of those big independent companies. He said, I got this idea of the list of Jericho, and you put a couple names on it, and that was, oh yeah, that's a great idea. And we did it. Of course you do it once, and then it was kind of funny, and, oh, that's pretty funny. Let's do it again. So we did it again the next week, and then it gets a little bit of a buzz. And then I go to the props truck and say, can you make me a big, thick list in case I want to use it to hit somebody over the head with and, engrave something on it. And then they just put a red piece of paper on it that said the list of Jericho. But meanwhile, this thing is growing. And then the 1 week when I just said, you just made the list and people cheered, it's like, holy shit, man. This is not what we expected. And then the week we were in there with New Day, and I put all 3 of them on the list. And I said, the secret is when I put you on the list, you have to sell it like it's a horrible thing. And Woods was great. So if people are laughing at it, then it doesn't get over. But because it's a serious thing, like to be on the list is horrible, then suddenly we've got this whole new world of stuff to deal with to where the list, like I was talking to Vince the other day, and I said the list is more over than half the roster. And he said, yeah, I wish the list could work. So we've got this entity of this thing that it doesn't even exist, but it's now a character on the show. So you can never the best gimmicks and the best things that work always happen organically. You can't shove something down people's throats. It just happens, and then it becomes a thing. And like I said, the only thing I can compare this to is my angle that I had with Shawn Michaels back in 2008. That was supposed to be just a one-night thing that turned into a 7-month angle that ended up culminating in a battle for the World Heavyweight Championship. That was not supposed to happen. It was never the plan. It was nothing more than just a drop in the bucket sort of thing. And that's kind of what this whole character has been, especially the list. And now, the other day when I came out with the list, it's like people are going nuts for it. To where, just a quick story, I was in Edmonton and Calgary the other day, and I was in Edmonton. I'm still a heel, so I gotta be a heel. I don't want to be a cool heel, and I don't want to embrace it because then I'm a babyface. So I'm still doing what I can to stay heel, and I'm doing good. I'm threatening to fight Wayne Gretzky, and I'm doing all this stuff at Edmonton. And then I go, "Oh, you're gonna boo me? All right, you know what happens when you boo me? You just made the list," and suddenly people just pop huge. So what do? The next night in Calgary, I start insulting the Heart. So I'm going to beat up every Heart family member, girls, guys, kids included. Big boos. You know what happens when you boo me? And people are starting to build. I'm like, oh, you thought you were going to be on the list? No, I'm sorry. You're not worthy of being on the list. The fine people in Edmonton last night, they belong on the list. Calgary, no chance. and that got boos. So now not being on the list is the new being on the list. And I did that last night on Raw for the first time, where I was like, I refused to put Roman on the list, and I refused to put anybody in Hartford on the list, and that made me a heel for the night. So you just never really know what's going to get over, but you have to take advantage of it when it does.
And that becomes the fun challenge, I think, because on Raw this week, I mean, that was such a disappointment that the crowd, that you totally threw them off with that. And also,
right.
not a bad idea when you're in the U.S. that always in your back pocket you can play the Canadian card, because they hate us.
And and once again, Vince will say, you're the only guy that can get away with this stuff because it's corny, but it's working. It's corny in a good way. And, Vince hates this, like the xenophobia of like, oh, America sucks, or you guys are stupid idiots. But it works, and especially when I'm in there with Roman Reigns. Like, listen, the guy is an amazing performer. He's a great worker. I would work with him every night of the year if I could. But still, people boo him because it's almost like the John Cena thing where they think that's the cool thing to do.
Yeah.
I think if you actually said, why don't you like Roman Reigns, people wouldn't even be able to give you an answer. It's just the cool thing to do is boo him. I know that, but I also know it doesn't take much to have them cheer him as long as I just do what I do. Okay, what gets me cheered? Putting you on the list? You're not on the list. What would get me booed? Okay, saying I don't like America. I have nothing, no cares for anybody in America. I'm from Canada. We're going to take this back to Canada and make it the Canadian title. It's easy heat, but it works. And towards the end of the night, the same thing that happens every time I work with Roman. They might be booing at first, but it's not long. They end up cheering for Roman, and then they might cheer for Jericho for a bit, but at the end of the night, they're going nuts for him. And I think I'm one of the few guys on the roster that can elicit that, along with Rusev, for basically doing a similar thing. So there's always a way to get heat, as long as you don't get too far up your own rear end and realize, holy shit, I'm so popular, people love me. You're still a heel, and until that shoe drops, it's my job to do anything I can to remain a heel. And if that means turning the tables and not giving people the catchphrase that I know they're going to pop for, I'd be a mark for myself if I did, because I'm not supposed to be getting cheers. I'm supposed to be getting boos for as long as I possibly can.
Now, everyone can talk about the incredible dynamic of yourself and Kevin Owens, but I think maybe the most unheralded person in this whole unit is the straight man, and that is Tom Phillips, who I think just adds so much to those segments, and that guy never gets enough praise for the role he plays with the two of you guys backstage.
Yeah, he did a great job with us, and we kind of became like a trio, and we haven't worked with him in a few weeks, which is a drag because he was kind of part of the formula to get Owens and Jericho over. And once again, that was not something planned. I think somehow we had some kind of a tag team match in London, just randomly, London, England. And at the end of it, Kevin ran and jumped in my arms, and he went, "You're the goat, I'm the donkey," and, something along those lines. And Vince heard us going back and forth. He said, like, I did it all by myself, but Chris helped, and like just little things that he was saying. And Vince was just laughing. And I remember saying to him, like, there's something there between us, and he's like, I agree. So they started putting us together, and suddenly, we actually pitched a movie, a buddy cop movie, to the head of WWE Films, Mike Luisi, where Kevin and I had to just sit there and improv for 3 minutes, and we came up with this ridiculously awesome piece of video, just completely improv. But of course, it's not a cheap action movie, so they're not going to do it. But the chemistry is there to be able to do it, and a lot of it that we do is improv. We just have a really similar sense of humor. We have great timing with each other. We don't even have to talk. We say things at the same time. I remember before the Money in the Bank, I was like, I was like the captain or something, and I'm yelling at Del Rio and Owens, and I'm like, you just better watch it. And Owens was like, watch what? And that's when I said, it. That was all made up. It was just kind of really funny stuff. And then after, I said, I like that. I'm going to go see if I can get the word "it" over. And that's another thing that ended up working out. So when you've been in the business as long as I have, at certain times when you have that chemistry with somebody, work-wise, I knew instantly I had it with The Rock, promo-wise. I had it with Edge. I had it with Rey Mysterio. I had it with Shawn Michaels. And I have it with Kevin Owens at this high degree. I had it with Big Show, too. You put these two guys together, and you don't know why it happens, but it just works. And that's a rare thing in wrestling. You think, for me, doing this for 26 years and working with thousands and thousands of guys, and I can pick, like I just did, the ones on one finger of my hand that I just had this amazing chemistry with right off the bat, where it made things so easy, both in the ring and out.
And it's It's also interesting because there's such a big focus on the two of you on television every week. You have the 3+ hours every week. And it was interesting because Daniel Bryan recently talked about this, that for the prior generations, it was all about getting exposure, getting onto television. The difficulty for today's performers is dealing with overexposure. There's so much of it. Do you find that to be an issue for guys and being able to make everything so fresh every week? I mean, last week, that search for the list, you had to have been in about 6 segments on Monday night.
I completely disagree with Daniel Bryan. I remember something that Shawn Michaels told me years ago. He goes, what, am I going to complain about getting more TV time? It's not overexposure if you don't make it overexposure, okay? It's overexposure if you say the same thing, do the same thing, look the same way, act the same way. From the moment I came into the business, I always focused on changing my costume, changing my look, changing my catchphrases, changing my matches. That's not overexposure. You know, I could go watch the Stones or Metallica play 5 shows in a row if they changed their set every night. I'd go every night. I think it's overexposure when you just go out there and do the same stuff every time, you know. And like I said, what Sean told me, it's like if you want to build a show around me and give me 30 minutes of TV time every week because you got 3 hours to fill, I will take it. And I'll make every one of those minutes work. Now, sometimes it doesn't work. That's just the law of averages. But you'll never see the same thing twice. I mean, or let me rephrase that. You'll never see the same thing to where it becomes stale. All right, for example, you just made the list. How did I say that last night? I'm getting close to overexposure. Now, I'm not going to say it. Now, you don't know if I'm going to say it or not.
Right.
Here's the part where he says you're on the list. He didn't say it. You know, the gift of Jericho became the list of Jericho, which became the key of Jericho. Drink it in, man. Ink it in, man. Lock it in, man. I can go down the whole damn Dr. Zeus library if I want to. There's a million things I can do to change things up to where you just never know what Jericho is going to do. You just never know what Jericho and Owens are up to. That's not overexposure. That's must-see TV, and there's a difference.
Are you sensing that with a lot of the younger guys that are getting called up, Chris, that are going out there and they have the ability to experiment, take risks, throw things against the wall, or is there still that mentality of not necessarily wanting to deviate if you're the new guy on the roster?
Well, the thing is, I guess it's hard for me to answer that because for me, after doing this for 26 years, 16 years in the WWE, 17 years in the WWE, not to sound like a jerk, but I can pretty much do what I want. I know I'll never get in trouble. I mean, I do sometimes, but I just weather it, and it's not the end of the world if you do something bad.
Right.
But I think a lot of the guys coming in don't have that confidence and don't have that mindset, and nor should they. They haven't earned it yet, but it's hard to earn that position where you can do anything you want to do and know that you'll make it good. And as long as it's good, Vince will never get mad at you. But I find that sometimes, even with, for example, I'm not sure we're going to air this, but a few weeks ago on Raw, a few nights ago on Raw, when they had the Trick or Street fight, it was going along really good. Anderson gets the pie in the face. He takes the bump on the table. Gallows gets bagged with the pumpkin, and then they try to put the pumpkin on his head. Doesn't fit on because the lid is in it. Then Enzo kind of misses the DDT, and then they just go to the finish anyways. If that was me, I would have kicked him in the face. I would have thought of another finish on the fly. And Gallows can do that. He's been wrestling for years, but I think they're just a little bit scared that this is the finish. We can't change it. We can't change it. We can't change it. That's not what wrestling is. Things go wrong all the time. Things change all the time. But in the system we're at, it's very constricted. Even promos. Not a lot of guys can have the ability to say this promo sucks. This has to be rewritten. Let's sit down and rewrite it. And we do it. And then if something changes during the promo, Mick Foley forgot some stuff last night. Didn't matter. I knew where we were going. I took over. After he's like, oh, thanks, man. It's like, I didn't do anything. We all know where we're going in this. Whether you say the line or I do, what difference does it make? But had that been some other guys, they might have froze waiting for Mick to say the line and be scared to say, well, should I say it? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? This is live TV. No one's perfect, right? But I think it takes a long time to get that confidence and get that in your mind that, we're in control. And if you do something that's wrong, you'll hear about it, but you're not going to get fired, unless you go out there and say the F word or whatever. But it's a little bit tough. But listen, I can't feel sympathy for anybody because you got to take a chance. That's what I did when I first came into the WWE. When I first came into WCW, no one told me what to do. I just did it. And if the bosses didn't like it, I got yelled at. I got in the doghouse, and then I found another way to get out of it. So, it's a long process to get that respect where you can do what you need to do to get over. But you have to take a chance.
I do want to talk about the live podcast that's coming here. It's going to be on Survivor Series Sunday, November the 20th. It's going to be a live show. And from when you launched the podcast, Chris, has this grown into something different for you? Because I think your interviews, it brings out such depth to so many of these different performers that we have seen. Ryback is one that is constantly brought up, and listening to that show, that people had such a different view of that character and more dimensions to it, that it feels like that is a presentation that could be very much utilized in different ways of how you present a lot of these performers and add that depth and their real stories. And they get to do that with you in a long-form presentation.
It's pretty cool. Like, I think this all stems because I've done thousands and thousands of interviews. And I know what it's like to get asked the same question over and over again. I know what it's like to hear a question where it just completely tunes you out.
Uh-huh.
And that's bad. It ends your interview before you even start it. So I don't have any questions for any interview I do. Nothing. I'll take a blank piece of paper, I'll walk in there, and we just talk. You and I are just talking right now. You might have some questions written down, or if we just see each other in a bar and start having a conversation, you could have a great talk with somebody with really no guidelines or bullet points. And I think that's one thing that people love about doing my show. And whether it's guys that don't have a lot of interview experience that I want to show them in a different light, like Ryback or TJ Perkins a couple of weeks ago, like, this guy never gets any promo time. Let me have him on my show and let's see what's there and see if people respond to it. Or guys that have had thousands of interviews, hundreds of thousands, like, Hulk Hogan. That's the best interview I've ever done. Paul Stanley said the same thing. Lemmy said the same thing. All these amazing, huge performers that are coming to me to do my show. William Shatner called me the other day. Hey, can I come on your show again? It's the third time, Or Avenged Sevenfold, introducing their new drummer on my show. Like, it's become a real platform for guys who just want to go on the air and have a great time. And I think that's why my show is so successful at over 170 million downloads at this point, because anybody that comes on has fun. And anybody that's listening enjoys it, whether it's a wrestling guest or whether it's paranormal or music or comedian or porn star or hockey player or one of my crazy friends. If I have someone on my show, I guarantee you're going to like it, because if I didn't think you would like it, I wouldn't have them on. And my mindset is more like the Tonight Show. You watch it because of Jimmy Fallon. You don't know who the guests are, but you like the show. You like what he does. It's going to be a fun watch. And that's what I do with my show, which is why it's become so successful. And when you do that in front of a live crowd, it's even more fun. And I started doing that a few years ago on my own shows. I had Kevin Smith on my podcast about a year and a half ago, and he said, any show that you do, record it, because you can always use it. So I did some live kind of one-man shows. I recorded, put them on. They did great. Then I did Doc McGee, Kiss's manager from the Kiss Cruise last year. That was a huge one. And so then a dude approached me about doing it with Christian at Caroline's in New York City at SummerSlam, and it got over huge. It sold out, and it was a great conversation. So now we're on to something to do this live Talk is Jericho, and that's what we're doing in Toronto with AJ Styles, the day of Survivor Series, earlier in the morning, and it's a perfect time for it. You get in, you want a day of kind of hanging out and being in the wrestling world. Well, come see our show, come hear AJ and his story, and we'll have some laughs back and forth, ask some questions, and kind of go from there. So it turned out to be a really cool kind of destination for the destination. If you're going to SummerSlam or you're going to Survivor Series, you want to come check out the live Talk is Jericho and go enjoy that first.
Yeah, and tickets are available, markoutmoments.com. You can even get VIP tickets, and that includes a pre-show breakfast with Chris Jericho as well, meet and greet, the Q&A, and you can also get items signed by both individuals. My final thing here, Chris, as we wind this down, you are in the midst of one of the best runs of your career at this point, and I know you're not going to tip your hand to anything, but is there a drop-dead date that you know when this ends? Do you have the ability to be flexible? Because I'm sure there was no way of, when you returned, imagining where you would be. Here we are in November with something so hot at the moment, and this thing has incredible legs to it. I feel you and Owens are sitting on gold at this point.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And like I said earlier, and once again, I've mentioned his name quite a bit, but I have a very close working relationship with Vince McMahon, and neither one of us expected this. Both of us would like to sit back and think we're the be-all, end-all, wise oracles that predicted this. But I will tell you this, my original plan was, when I came back last January, was to stay until WrestleMania, 4 months.
Wow.
And then it started going so good, I resigned, I think, until July. And then I resigned until October. And then I resigned until, November. And now it's basically a month-by-month thing. I've got a certain time frame in mind, but I can't even say that because what was supposed to be 4 has already been 10. So there's really no, and it's like, because I am smart enough to know this. Once again, I've been doing this for a long time, and to have, like you said, this could be my best run. I still think my 2008 Shawn Michaels, Rey Mysterio, Big Show might have been better, but if it was, it's not by far. This could be the best run I've ever had, and at 45 years old, 10 years ago, that you would think that was old. Now, the Stones are still killing it at 74 years old. So as long as physically I can go and still, basically look the part, I don't really put any limits on age or anything like that. I can still go out there and have the best match on the show any given night. And I'm working with guys that are 10, 15 years younger and don't feel that. I love working with Owens and Rollins and Reigns and Sami Zayn and Ambrose and AJ. Like, those guys are reinvigorating my love for the business. Because I've been through a lot of generations of business, and also keep this in mind, all my generation of guys, as sad as it's to say this, have either, my best friends have either passed away or retired.
Yeah.
So now I have this whole new group of guys who, like, it starts out as a little bit of hero worship, but that's great. But now let's get down to it and just start working and having some fun. And these are like my best friends on the job right now. I love hanging out with the guys. They're all really great guys, and there's no reason for me to stop because I'm doing something for the right reason because I love doing it. And that's why I do anything at this point. Thankfully, I don't have to worry about any financial issues. I do something because I love it. It's the same reason when I go back on the road with Fozzy, it's because I love playing rock and roll, and I love building my band, and I love seeing how much the band has grown and the reactions we get and the tours we get with Kiss and Metallica and Avenged Sevenfold, Shinedown. So whatever I'm doing, the podcast, I love doing it. I love talking to people. I just finished writing my 4th book, so anything I do, I'm putting 1,000% effort into it. I believe in it, and I enjoy doing it. Right now in the WWE, I'm enjoying this run as much as I had anything in my entire career, and I'm gonna enjoy it for as long as I can, and continue to build it and continue to entertain for as long as I can in the WWE for sure.
So once again, you can catch it the live Talk is Jericho Sunday, November the 20th. Go check out markoutmoments.com where you can get your tickets. And Dan the Mouth Lavransky did want to send his best, Chris.
Well, I was going to say you did actually a really good interview today, John. You're actually almost a little bit better than Dan the Mouth lately. He's been avoiding me, I think. I haven't talked to him in a long time, so I think you know what happens. You know what happens when you don't talk to Chris Jericho for a long time?
Uh-oh.
John Pollock, you know what happens? You know what happens? You know what happens to Dan Lavransky for avoiding me? You know what happens? Hey, Lavransky, you just made the list.